GroupM Asia Pacific. Please welcome Mr. Ashutosh Srivastava.
Salamat sore Jakarta. I hope everyone wakes up. I can just see the energy running very low in the room. Can I have everyone stand up? Oh my God. Takes so much effort to stand up. Can I wave, everyone wave back to me? Thank you. Now I think everyone's awake. All right, good afternoon. So what I thought I'll do with everyone here, you've been hearing a lot of examples of application of AI within your businesses, but it's very important to grasp and understand what is the context, what is happening, the scale and the speed at which things are changing, and what are the implications in your individual jobs, and not just your jobs in marketing and advertising, but in your life, in different aspects of your life. Because once you have that context, it's just easy to place things which you do in your day-to-day jobs in the right perspective. So I'll give you a very quick peek into what's happening and give you a few simple frameworks that I'll leave behind for you to think about when you look at your business. So I have called it an era of exponential change. Now, of course, things are changing very quickly. You're reading all this in the newspapers and in all the media that you consume. It's not just the change, the scale and the speed of change. It's also the politics behind it, the power play behind it, the change, any disruption brings about a lot of uncertainty. So there is this politics and there is power play. There are people who are making massive investments in big businesses. At the same time, within AI, there's a lot of development which is open source, which is all there to disturb the existing business models. And therefore, you hear contradicting statements like you see in this chart up there. And this journey has been very quick. So if you look at this event which happened, it was not that long back when using a combination of brute computing power and machine learning, the first real sort of large-scale application of AI to create the most complex stars, which is the board game Go, which is arguably the most complex board game in the world. The computer was able to beat the world champion with ease. And this was 2017, right? We are in 2023. Just the other day, with a friend, I was walking around at this art gallery in Singapore, and I saw these beautiful artworks up on the walls. Why I wanted to put this up here is it's really poignant because these artworks are created by young people who are suffering from different mental health issues. Anxiety, even schizophrenia in some cases. And all they've done here is, and this person from RJ, the ad agency, got a bunch of these people together and asked them just to express what they feel in that mental health state. People with anxiety or people with depression, people with schizophrenia. And they use Gen AI to describe their feelings and their inner selves. And it's very poignant, it's very evocative, but it shows you the power of this technology and how quickly it has pervaded into our lives, affecting everything from healthcare to even communication in this way. And obviously driven by tremendous growth in computing power. You're all familiar how quickly computing power is doubling every 18 months. So just a simple example here. It shows you 1997, the room in which that other computer is, called the KY Red. It cost $50 million to build. And it was the first computer in the world that could go up to 1 teraflops per second computing, meaning the ability to add 1 billion numbers in a second. 20 years later, the same thing, 17 times more, right? And look at it, the size of the room versus a small chip inside your iPhone that you're carrying. at the cost of less than $1,000 and 17 times more processing power. That is the scale and the speed at which this has been impacting us. And it's not visible, but it's there, all pervading in everything. And this is how it's impacting our day-to-day lives. And why I wanted to give you this example is that just the scale and the speed at which things are changing. And if you think this is what you've seen, this is just the beginning. Because our brains are programmed to think very linearly, right? But the speed of change here is exponential. And before we realize it, things just change beyond belief. There's a lot more change ahead because of the sheer advances in computing, whether it's parallelization, whether it's photonics, whether it is quantum computing. So you can see that the scale and the speed of this change will become faster and faster and faster. And you have to be really with it to keep, especially in your professions, to make sure you are the cutting edge of application of the capabilities that are getting developed. The biggest change, again, this is more context, like forever, computing was based on rules-based algorithms, right? And they are based on logic. That's how the machines were programmed to do tasks. Today, and you've heard this all through the morning, data. Now, by data, I don't mean cookies. This data is everywhere. Is there in the sewage with the DNA that you're expelling from your body every morning. It's there when you touch a door. It's there with your phones that you carry. And it's there in just about every aspect of your life. And there's a massive deluge of data that is being created. So using that data, using conditional probabilities, and creating what we call now as deep, you know, the whole concept of how to use that data to create deep insights is what the game has become all about. So data everywhere. The volume of data is doubling every 12 months. And when you combine that with machine learning and you start building models several layers deep, then you suddenly get to do tasks which you could have only imagined in the past. It's no longer about rule-based algorithm, but it is based on probabilistic outcomes. And therefore, the AI with each round of training and learning becomes smarter and smarter and smarter. And therefore, the moment you put the computing power advance that's there, all this data and smart talent together, you get to a very different level. So if you look at this chart, we all talk today about generative AI. So what this chart has done is mapped out the capability of that ChatGPT 3 or 4, as you can see on this chart, mapped it against other living beings, and the equivalent comparison here is the number of synapses in the brain of that living being versus the number of neural networks that are deployed for each of these technologies. So if you go by this, you can see that today ChatGPT 4, for instance, has the average intelligence of a gray squirrel, right? Other than the fact that it cannot dig a hole, which the squirrel can, and the AI cannot because it's not embodied. It's about that level of intelligence. And as you go to the other end of the chart, you can see where the human beings are. Interestingly, there are living beings with more synapses than us. I don't know what they're saying. They're probably talking to each other in a language which we don't understand, but ostensibly more intelligent than us. But again, once you start putting all this together, training machine learning these models, the cost of doing that is halving every 3.5 months. So it's not just the availability of data and devices and computing power and energy, etc. It's also the cost of doing this task is plummeting with each such development. So it's just putting access to AI in the hands of more and more people to do more and more tasks at a cost today which is affordable to all. And of course, this is the other development, just the availability of the cloud. So what it does is it allows AI to train other AIs. So if you look at all the images on this side of the chart, what do you see? Do you recognize any of these faces? They are all fake. First AI has generated these images. The second AI tells it whether they are fake or real. So it generates them again, and that's how it keeps going on, and the two AIs keep training each other to a greater and greater and greater level of sophistication. Right? So that's the speed and scale at which this technology is advancing. So 4 factors that we talked about so far: the Moore's law and the exponential growth in computing power, data having being able to harness all the data, because that's the key asset. You know, anyone can today build a Tesla, but what does Tesla have is massive amounts of data of all the driving habits of millions of people who are driving the car there. That's the real asset with that company. AI systems that grow. You saw ChatGPT 3, 4, more learning, bigger neural networks, more layers, and therefore it becomes more and more sophisticated, and of course the cloud, you know. So in the past, we used to all learn driving, and we could teach a few other people how to drive. With autonomous vehicles, there is a vast network of vehicles which will emerge, all connected by the cloud, who will all be transmitting what they're learning in that instant to millions of other vehicles, which was never possible in human civilization. And that's what the compounding power of this technology is, that it can instantly train and gather data and use that for deeper learning and deeper learning till it becomes more and more sophisticated. Things which we could have never imagined as human beings are now possible. And that is what is creating all the change. So again, a simple way of thinking about how these changes are happening. There's the digitization of every business around you that you're seeing. What that leads to is, therefore, a complete change in the business models, right? So, and that pace of change is deceptive. It looks like it's going to take a long time, but it changes very, very quickly. And that's what causes disruption in the business models. And what that then does is it converts physical things into the digital world and gives easier access to more people. It brings the cost down, and it democratizes access to that product or that service or that business in a very, very quick amount of time. And this is what we see and will continue to see in every aspect of our lives. So all these sectors today are benefiting massively from these kind of changes, whether it's going into healthcare, whether it's going into biotechnology. I mean, any field that you name it is today embedding and deploying AI. AI is everywhere. You cannot see it, but its impact you are seeing in virtually every sector and in every aspect of our life. Retinal scans today from Google. I don't know how many of you saw this announcement, but what it does is it predicts the next cardiovascular event for a person. Just out of that, just the AI trained to read from your retinal scan what's the state of health of your arteries, right? So no more X-rays, no more CT scans, no more MRIs. Learning from nature, again, deploying AI to learn and create materials which are sustainable. So you know muscles, we eat them, they are on our plates, they live underwater, they create fiber which actually works underwater. It still sticks, it gives adhesive power to the muscle to stick to rocks. So mimicking what is there in nature to create natural materials which are non-toxic and which can be used is again something which AI has unleashed to us. Food. The ability of AI to create proteins which the humans cannot do, but its ability to design proteins which result in food material from plant sources which mimics the taste and texture of meat-based foods which otherwise are harmful to the nature itself is suddenly now possible because of AI. Cancer cure, I mean, this is how far it has reached. So the moment you look at a combination of CRISPR, which is gene editing, this little girl who had leukemia, they were able to take her T cells and they were able to edit out that gene which causes cancer and replace it with another one which is able to seek out cancer cells and kill them. So they just re-injected her blood plasma back into her body, and in 2 years, her leukemia is in remission. So this is the future of health and longevity, all being unleashed through the power of AI. So over a period of time, AI has moved forward and faster at a faster and a faster pace. So like I told you, starting with rules-based algorithms to then advanced analytics, which we saw through the 90s and the early 2000s and 2010, to today, when AI has reached the stage where it's become cognitive through machine learning, through stacking layers of neural networks to make sure that all those tasks are done with more and more intelligence, to now playing with what is creative. You know, when we define creative in this context, it's the ability to fill in the blanks. So the example I gave you of a protein which the AI is designing in order to create plant-based meats. These are this is a creative task. Human beings haven't thought of a way of how to create that protein, but the AI could. So ability to do these kind of things, solve medical issues. In future, because today what it cannot do is that the AI is still, we can't see it. So with the advances in robotics, being able to bring this to bear to do physical tasks will be the next wave and eventually lead to what we all recognize as sentient AI, where AI is able to create another AI. It's that level of intelligence which then reaches and surpasses human intelligence, right? I don't know how many of you read this book, which predicts that by 2043, general artificial intelligence will overtake human intelligence. Now, of course, there are other predictions which say actually that will happen even faster, because at the time Ray Kurzweil wrote this book, to today, the advances have been so exponential that that pace itself has increased. So why I'm bringing all this out is our brains think linearly, but the speed of change is exponential, and before we realize, the whole future gets reset and it just changes faster and faster. Yes, today if we look around us, with the intelligence of a gray squirrel, there are many tasks which the AI still can't do, right? It's also disembodied. So there are physical tasks, so all those jobs which require great physical skills, for instance, today the AI cannot do, and it will take time for robotics to catch up and for humans to start getting replaced on physical tasks, right? However, as we speak, there are more developments. Also, our brain today is very efficient, right? So for a task, for a massive cognitive task for which the brain would probably consume the equivalent 20 watts of energy, a computer takes 2 kilowatts, right? So our brains are incredibly efficient machines. And therefore, we thought that would always be a barrier. But as we speak, there is more research and development, and IBM's just announced its new chip, which cuts energy consumption by 96%. So all this is pointing to convergence at a scale and a speed which we had not even thought of just 2 years ago. And that's how quickly things are changing. And obviously, this is throwing up a number of challenges for us to debate and talk about. What happens to jobs in this future? What kind of skills do we need to have? What happens to IP if everything can be created by AI? Then who owns the IP? Deep fakes you saw all over the place, cybersecurity issues. We need to reframe the laws. And of course, there's the whole issue of ethics. Just because AI gives the power to do certain things, should we do it? Is it right or wrong? Where's the moral compass of the organization? Are we to do that or not? And the whole area of algorithmic bias is a study, a research on its own. Because as human beings, we all carry biases and we program them into algorithms. And because machine learning is picking up actual behavioral data and training itself, it's actually absorbing all the biases which we as collectively as a civilization have. And therefore, how do you eliminate that if you want the AI to be doing the right thing, to be following a moral compass and being a force for good? New legal frameworks. I mean, today, who owns what? How would laws be? Also, how would the system of governments work? I mean, you look at the hearings in the Senate in the US, or you look at parliamentary debates about AI in different countries, most of those people don't even grasp what is happening, right? And the way it is going, I mean, if you're really talking about sentient AI, there will be a time when it will replace the current system of governance. And that time, right now, looks like fiction, but like everything you've seen in this chart so far, is going to come before anyone realizes it. And these are the kind of changes which will quickly come up. So in all this, I always look at 3 guiding factors which need to really guide our decisions, whether it's in our own lives or whether it's in our organizations. So yes, there is the fear of the downside. There's biases, there is bad actors at play, there's all kinds of things which can happen with the power that is getting unleashed here. But you have to balance it with its ability to improve lives. There is also the other side which you've seen, which is phenomenal ability to impact and to do things better and do it in the right way. Instead of leaving it all to market forces, because what happens here, yes, the costs are coming down, but the access, if it's left purely to the private marketplace, would lead to inequity. And therefore, that's where the governments and philanthropists need to redefine their role on how they are going to bring the benefits of AI to the millions, to the billions of people around the world, especially people who are not as fortunate and not living in the first world countries. And again, I keep trying to drive this message home with everyone I talk to about this. Yes, we can all see what the capabilities are today, But don't think linear, because things change at an exponential speed, and the capabilities of this AI are also going to continue to change exponentially. So before I close, I just thought I'd leave a few thoughts which are, again, direct to our businesses, and again, some facts as well as a framework to think about as we go about doing this. The biggest areas of impact, and you've seen it in some of the examples through the day, and you'll continue to see more of those throughout the day, are in the area of experience design and in terms of other factors which drive brand growth, as well as the productivity of our entire business. And whether it's discovering audiences and building segments, to mapping out their journeys, to figuring out content and what works, personalizing it, all these are areas where AI is already beginning to make an impact. Just in the last few months, I must have met at least 100 different founders and inventors of, who are applying AI just to either simplify the workflow or build more capabilities in this area in terms of better user experience, better design, and other factors which would drive brand growth, such as personalization of the content, creation of that content. And if you look at this was a research which McKinsey did recently with the opinion leaders in some of the more mature markets. As you can see, it's the same factors which everyone is playing up where they think in marketing. The biggest impact for AI is going to come in the coming months and years, which we're talking about. However, the inertia of, again, change, because when you look at the actual use cases and how much is really coming out, you'll find that it's relatively less, and it's in just a few areas, the same set of people. So closer home here in our own region in APAC, you can see that there is a lot of excitement. There's a lot of talk. We are right now in that hype cycle, right? Everyone is talking about it. Size of the market is likely to be huge in this part of the world as well. And most of the organizations, again, from the same research in this region, saying that this is what they would like to start deploying in a bigger and bigger way in the coming months. But again, when we talk of APAC, the picture is very different as you go market by market. So on the top right quadrant, this what it maps out is interest from marketers, high to low, and the supporting ecosystem which will enable them to implement some of these from high to low. And you can see top right quadrant has got China and India in it. Bottom left quadrant has got Japan and Australia, New Zealand in it. And then you've got Korea, which is building it, and there are other market data as well, which is somewhere in the middle. I've just tried to declutter this chart. But as you can see, very different stages of development and the ability to do things. Lots of examples are going to emerge and continue to emerge. I mean, some of you would be familiar with the work which Mondelez has done. Again, this video will be on the MMA website, so instead of running more into this time, you can have a look at it there. There are other considerations that on which people are developing new ideas. So for instance, every platform today is deploying AI to understand your creative assets in terms of contextual targeting. So here is a typical ad. This is a Lay's ad which was run during the Super Bowl in the US, right? When you get the AI to read this ad, apart from people drinking Pepsi and drinking Pepsi and eating the chips here, and being happy, there are pictures of people who are sad. There's an alcohol bottle sitting behind one man who's particularly sad. So there are a number of negative sentiment things which are slipped in this video, right? So, and when you start looking at, let's say, the Meta AI, which looks at this for contextual targeting, it can pick up some of these wrong clues, and it can start targeting it in the wrong context as well. So what this means for you is that you have to therefore use AI to make sure that the creative material that you're designing is also contextually relevant, and it's got the right pictorial clues or video which will make sure that it is targeted. So it's AI talking to AI. And if you don't do that, then you end up wasting your money by just having that ad sent in the wrong. And the moment you get it right, you can see all these parameters start to kick up and do well. And therefore, all the platforms, today are busy deploying AI from their own side, which you need to take into account. right? So again, I'm skipping this video in the interest of time. Amazon Ads have built this whole product which allows people to easily automate production. We saw some examples earlier today as well. So skipping that and leaving you with some key thoughts at the end. So the moment you start deploying this, even some of the earlier studies are showing that you can drive a top line growth and a bottom line growth, which is significant, right? But for that to be right, we need to go about it in a very organized way, making sure that our MarTech and sales, the full stack is reviewed and it's ready for AI deployment. Creating a functional team within the organization, which looks at everything that you've got and sets a vision and strategy for how we are going to deploy AI. Getting the starting point is very important. Putting aside a certain amount of budget, and you can see some of the brands have already started to do this well, and that's where the first use cases are emerging. So ring fencing some of your budget, because the downstream impact is tremendous. You just need to make sure that you pick the right partners and you're able to define what you're testing well and measure the results. Identifying the maximum impact potential during the entire customer journey so that you're again able to build strong use cases. So build more and more of these use cases. And of course, there's lots of risk, right? Of using wrong material, of putting it in the wrong domain, etc. So clearly putting down guardrails for where that risk is and what you should do and what you should not do. So for instance, the previous example I showed you ingests a brand's entire set of creative assets for the last 20 years. And then it sets some guardrails in place to say this should not be allowed in the creative material, this should be. And making sure that all the people who are engaged in this continue to train and train and train and build more use cases, and that's how step by step you'll move forward. And believe me, again, this chart looks very linear, but once you're in it, you will see that suddenly the pace of change and the sophistication of the technology and the use cases will start to grow exponentially, and you will find great results coming through to your brand. So that's what this day is all about. So I just thought I'd put in that context so that you can see how to convert everything that you're seeing and hearing into action. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashutosh Srivastava.